My name is George Lawyer. I'm the Director of Technical Operations at StubHub. I know most of you are here just to hear about StubHub. You know, this is it's a cool company. We love working for it. I've got a bunch of stubbers we call each other here in the house. So give me a little whoop, you guys. Give me a little noise. Thank you. And we'll talk today a bit about this modernization journey that we're on with StubHub, taking ourselves from whatever we have been in the past into whatever we're going to be in the future. So this is going to be a lot of fun. This is a little bit first about who StubHub is. Today, this is a company, it's part of eBay, and we run a ticket marketplace that many of you are probably customers of and have traded, both sold and bought tickets on. We are delighted to have you all as customers. We call all of our customers, of course, fans for all the sports and concerts and theater that our fans love, and everything that we do is all about our fans. So we sell about a ticket every 1.3 seconds, and of course a lot faster around World Series time. And there's millions of tickets sold per month across all 48 countries. We do most of our business in the US, but we have a thriving international business, both directly in those 48 countries and cross-border. 100 million unique visitors come to this site every year, and we are delivering tickets in both paper and more frequently now in electronic form. So in barcodes and QR codes that show up on your phone and that get you into your event. And speaking of getting you into your event, we have a fan protect guarantee, and so we spend a significant amount of our resources to make sure that you get in. So this means that you've bought a ticket off of StubHub and you get to the gate and you get refused for some reason. You're on the phone with us, you've got a replacement ticket if there's one available, and you're in the venue and you get to see the event, because the most important thing is that we get you in. So that's a bit about who we are. This modernization opportunity is all about you too. We're all about delivering what we want on the site, your experience on the site in the best way possible. And so we're changing the way that we deliver products to our fans constantly. We increase our use of data to further personalize the fan experience. That's something that we're doing today, and we're trying to figure out ways to accelerate that. We are increasing our agility to radically increase the number of experiments we do, because what we're finding, as I think probably any e-commerce site finds, is that nothing is standing still, and the way that customers want to interact with the site and to buy tickets on the site changes all the time, and something that we need to adjust. And we are trying to bring more people to the site and bring you more to purchase more tickets there too. We'd like to bring you back over and over again as fans to whatever it is that you want to see or hear. We are accelerating our move to the public and private cloud. The private cloud, just because it makes it much more flexible and agile for us to deliver what we're delivering, and to the public cloud in part for the same reasons, but also so that we can bring some of the infrastructure closer to our customers who are distributed around the world, and thus give them a faster and better experience. And finally, we just doubled down on our focus on the fan journey from beginning to end. Now, all of you are probably in the midst of doing modernizations or transformations, as it's more commonly called in the industry. And you know that there are challenges there. And the same is true for us. We've had challenges. And I'm going to talk about how the challenges come up for the ops team, for the architecture team, for the developers, and for the business owners. So, when we talk about challenges, sure, there's technical challenges, and we're dealing with those every day, just like you are. But we see that some of the more challenging parts of modernizations or transformations are the people issues. How people feel about the transformation, how people feel about this big change that is moving through the industry and through the business that they're working in. And so the ops team was very concerned from the beginning about the loss of experts, the loss of people because of automation, and feeling like it's going to replace people's jobs, so that they would lose jobs on the basis of that. The architecture team felt like they were not able to reorganize, which was going to be necessary in order to make all of the rest of the transformation work. Conway's Law says that your software comes out just like your organization. And so if you don't have the organization tuned into the way that your software is built, then you're not going to get what you're thinking you were going to get. Our developers, of course, took a look and along with all the technical things that they're looking for, which is the thing that they were thinking most about, there's also the worry that they've been working in domains for years now, and they know that knowledge domain very well. And this kind of reorganization would threaten to move them out of a comfortable place and out of a place where they really perform in exceptional ways, and they're reluctant to do that. And business owners were not real thrilled with the idea of spending any time at all on anything other than what they wanted us to do. So that was something they want value to the business, and they want those resources focused there. And on the chance that we might get better at doing this, that was something that they might take the risk on, but they want to see how much risk that is. So how do you address fears like this? Well, the approach that we're taking is one that allows the transition to take place gradually throughout the whole organization. And something gradual is something that I literally mean it's going to take 2 to 3 years for us to move through this process. We started this year, and we're in that crawl phase right now. We're going to get into the walk phase in the next year or so and get into the run phase later on. That brings some ability to see how it's going to change from one place to the other, and to give people a chance to make the adjustment and to bring them with us, because it's a very important part of the resource, a very important part of the solution, a very important part of what StubHub is, the people who make that happen. It reduces risk on the crawl phase by basically delivering the platform first and the first apps, just as almost like a proof of concept, but one that's in production. And so that gives us a full experience of what it's going to be like to bring that app alive. We do it first in the private cloud, in our own data center, because that's where we're most familiar. And we don't have to solve both the problems of being in the public cloud and the problems of bringing up a new platform as a service to start with, all at the same time. But then as we gain experience, we move into GCP. First apps are already uncovering challenges in our CI/CD approaches and our test automation, and so we're learning as we go with those first applications, and as that learning takes place, we're expecting that we'll be able to transfer that learning into the subsequent phases in the walk and run phase, and so that's going to be true throughout this process as well. It's just common sense, and so the walk phase is just more of the same. We ramp up more teams, and so before the end of this year, we'll have 4 teams, it looks like, working on applications, because we've just delivered the first production version of the homepage app. Got a short start last week. We should have it live this week, taking Canary traffic, and the learning as the other teams come on board will just expand at that point. We've picked a few apps to go after here, and we'll learn more about running them in production. We'll learn more about the big change for us of moving away from a whole stack deployment and then a pod approach where we put code in a whole stack, and then when we're ready for a new piece of software, a new set of software, we push all of the new code into a different stack and then transfer the traffic over there piecemeal until we're happy with it there. And so moving into blue-green deploy makes a much more granular approach, and just learning that is a huge thing for the organization to learn about. And then in the run phase, we'll by that time have fully laid out the bounded context for the new domain structure. The microservices are going to be firing on all cylinders here. And we'll be using hybrid deployment between our private data center and our GCP PCF environment to help us move the process, slow that process, or to make more stable that process of moving from that old infrastructure service architecture into a full microservices architecture, taking it incrementally instead of doing a big bang approach. So let me dive a little deeper onto each one of these stories. On the operations side, the technical challenges here were that the private data center was over deploying resources. So what we were seeing is we see, of course, because it takes time to get hardware up and running, and we have peaks in our seasonality in our in our demand that looks a lot like the World Series and the Super Bowl and the Final Four. That we need to make sure that we've got those resources available, and we want to not be in a position where we say run out of memory or run out of CPU in a cluster, and so it's well over deployed, so that we're not trying to throw resources at it during the middle of a demand spike. The ops team, of course, was required to make changes, all of its changes in production. And even though we're using tools like Puppet, there's still a lot of manual logging into servers. And each ops specialty is a gate because it becomes a queue. It becomes something that in order to get something done in production, you have to go and ask somebody to do something. It's not self-service to get that product into production. The PCF platform, the solution is what we saw as a solution for this in a private data center. Gives us the automation that we're looking for. It's and in the Google Cloud gives us a common platform that we can move applications easily from either the private data center or into the Google Cloud, and to connect them where it makes sense over the WAN to make those applications work together. Auto-scaling the microservices drives us to a much higher machine utilization in our private data center, and of course helps us manage GCP costs as we scale with demand. And automating all things, basically getting into the mode where we're delivering a product. The platform is a product. You're hearing that all over today, all over this week. And we've adopted that mantra as well, and driving our team to start thinking about it as a product and not just as a series of tickets that the team is going to deliver. And it makes a big difference in the way that they think about this. And the automating the services so that we get rid of these tickets also means that this is full-time employment for all these ops folks who are worried about losing their jobs when we do this automation, because there's a lot of work to get all this automation done and to continue doing that automation. We're expecting, as we go through the product life cycles, that we're going to have a continuous stream of requests for upgrading the platform and adding to the platform. You're seeing here at the convention here that there is a continuous set of updates coming for the platform that need to be adopted and need additional work to make sure that they're integrated smoothly into your production systems. On the architecture side, the problems that we were facing with here is that the applications just aren't cloud native. We have apps today that take 15 minutes to start. And microservices architecture is supplanting the service architecture as a paradigm for how we want to deliver these apps. And we were nowhere close being able to take that on. And although we'd created a domain organization for all of the software that we've written, it wasn't a clean design. And so there were lots of cross dependencies between the domains that we needed to go back and take another shot at dividing that up into bounded contexts. So the application transformation best practices we adopted from Pivotal helped us to figure out how to implement a brownfield cloud native applications where we don't have to go back and rebuild everything from scratch, but also the Dojo engagements to help us understand how to build greenfield apps from the beginning. The enterprise architecture engagements helped us define and are still working on clean bounded contexts. And we've got a modernization forum led by our engineering team to prioritize and sequence the targets that are going to be transformed or modernized in this new way. And then finally, this hybrid deployment is there to solve the WAN latency issues during the early phases, basically trying to pick and choose which sets of microservices go into the cloud, which need to be close to customers, and which are going to be better off in the back end for the early stages, because the back end is the place where all the transactions take place. We need to figure the best way to deliver a transaction so that a ticket only gets sold once all over the world. So once it's sold, it gets marked, and that transaction is seen by every piece of infrastructure that StubHub is running. The developer story has challenges of no self-service access to the platform resources. Over a number of years, we had restricted the developers from having access to the production environment, and so there was a whole service mindset in the ops organization trying to deliver those services for them. And no full CI/CD automation. There were so many humans and gates involved in this. It was typical for a small software project to require 20 to 25 tickets to get into production. And missing or failing test automation, requiring QA gates to manually test as we went through those. So the concourse pipeline and CI/CD automation is a template. We're using a template from the platform as a product delivered to each one of the teams. As they're onboarded, they get that template and they start working through that and start bringing that the template into something customized that they use for their own particular stack and set of software components that they're using. The SDLC gate automations. This software development lifecycle, there's a team just going after these automations themselves, identifying where we need governance gates and where we can automate each one of those so that, for example, on the security side, we can give them feedback in a system so that a developer can run against, just do a build and get immediate feedback that it's passing a static security test or a dynamic security test, and know exactly what they have to fix if they've missed something in the process of doing that. Now not having to depend on a security and InfoSec person at the end of the process being a gate for getting into production. Same thing on test-driven development. This one is a big challenge because we've not been in the habit of having completely test-driven development, but our new engineering leaders are totally committed to this, and so as we bring people into the cloud-native world, this will be the practice that they bring into this and giving us not just automated test suites, but highly reliable ones, because what has plagued our testing in the past has been tests that fail not because the software's failing, but because the infrastructure for the testing is failing. And then finally, integrating code review and architecture review assistance as we get in there so that that's a natural part of the process and not something that we're remembering, oh yeah, before we go to production, can we take a look at this? And so get after it that way. And then finally, in the business story, the challenges are the long design and development cycles. It takes a long time to get from idea into production, and we're going to be measuring how much we improve that as we go through this modernization process. Long release cycles with a lot of manual gates for the individual software that's going out. So you'd get done with the software for this feature and you're expecting to say, all right, I'm ready to go. Can I see it tomorrow? And no, you're going through now all the gates and all the processes that are required because we haven't got all of that automated here. And of course, because of all of that, it's difficult to do fast experiments. And this business is moving much faster than that kind of a slower development process, and so we need to speed up the development process and the delivery process to production, the value delivery process, so that it matches the need for getting experiments done. So the solutions here are just the ones you've been hearing about already from me. Getting the bounded context in cloud-native design going here to reduce the cross-team coordination. We guess that our developers are spending today about 2/3 of their time in meetings, just coordinating with other organizations, trying to get these things out the door so that they'll be reliable and stable when they get into production. So that's the basis for the lowest level of productivity increase that we're expecting to see from this. The pipeline and the test and compliance automation should eliminate the ticket queuing tie-up that we've had. And the shorter time from idea to production is going to allow us to get to a place where we can do more experiments. As much as possible, we've untethered the folks who can do those experiments with tools like Optimizely in our environment. But this allows us to do code-based experiments much more quickly, and that's going to be a big win. And then, of course, the blue-green deploy per microservices cluster frees us up from having to coordinate massive code releases into pods that have to be switched from one pod to the other at a time, and switched back if we have one piece of it that fails, and going back and forth through those kinds of rollbacks. So overall, the lessons that we learned from going through already in this, and that we expect to continue to apply as we move into our walking and running phases, are on the ops side is that we're identifying these opportunities where ops is over deploying. One of those places, when we get to the end of this, we'll see is that we're not going to need 3 pods to do deployments today. We'll be able to run in these clusters and do blue-green deploys and bring up auto-scaling as we go. The architecture, self-service and auto-scaled infrastructure, that creates re-architecture value. And why is re-architecture value important? Because nobody re-architects for fun. Nobody re-architects for value. It's tough to figure out how to justify doing the re-architecture, and we know that it's going to bring value, but it's hard to sell to the business that way. But as we increase developer velocity, that helps to drive the decision-making to get you there. On the developer side, the hybrid deployment allows services to incrementally move to microservices, so we don't have to do the big bang, and that gives us a way to transition to the new architecture. And then finally, for the business owner, all of the SDLC automation is going to eliminate the human gates and enable a much shorter idea to production time. And we're looking at going for StubHub from going 6 to 9 months to get an idea into production into weeks or maybe even days in some cases. So that gives value to the business, gives them a much faster iteration time for experimentation. And it's not spoken to them in terms of tech value, even though that tech value is definitely there for all of us technologists. Finally, the value that we're delivering already is that we've got the platform operational in our data center in Las Vegas. The storefront or homepage of StubHub is running with canary traffic in production. It was running for a short time, and then we're fixing some things, and we're going to bring it back on. The platform is operational in the Google Cloud platform, and by that we are running a parallel platform team in Bilbao, Spain, that's bringing it up on GCP, but we've already built the pipeline for the platform. The pipeline for the product is running out of GCP and deploying into our private data center, and that will be our center of operations there. The search events application modernizing, breaking one of the several monoliths that we've got in our services architecture. Checkout modernizing is getting started here. That moves a key flow to this high velocity experimentation platform. And the mobile ticket transfer modernizing, this is a big deal just because we have so much experimentation to do here. There's a lot of change going on in the industry, in the secondary market and primary ticket market to get tickets to customers' hands in ways that they can be digitally processed at the gate. That's a high pain point, and we've got to get much more high velocity experimentation there. And so that's the third application that we'll be going after in this year in 2018. So that's the modernization story for StubHub. I'm glad to have you here and talking about this. And I hadn't planned on taking questions, but I think we've got a little bit of time. But thank you very much. Or you can just escape. We'll get down here. Go ahead.
What's your operator to developer ratio that you have?
Let's see. I think if we take a look at all of the operators to developers, we're about a 6-to-1 currently, yeah. And so, but that includes everybody in the ops side. So that's not just platform operators, but our network operating center, our SRE team, DBA team, all those pieces. Yes?
You
Great question. I'll repeat that. The question was, I mentioned that we were seeing even small projects taking 20 to 25 tickets to get through to production for all the different services that ops and other teams were providing to development teams. And what have we seen so far in that reduction? And today, the storefront team is able to push into production with, I think, 1 or 2 tickets. And so it makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference. So. Seeing anybody else out there, it's hard to see. Yes?
Why did you select GCP instead of AWS?
Oh, why did we select GCP instead of AWS? You know, I work for eBay. AWS is our mortal enemy, so. Sorry, I love AWS, by the way. I used AWS in my previous job, but not anymore. Yes, in the back here.
You alluded to security as a tool for automating the pipeline. Can you share what tool or utilities you used?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the question is, what security tool, security automation tool are we using? So we've used for a long time SonarQube for doing static analysis on those, and that we're continuing to use, and it's integrated into the pipeline. And a new one that we've just we're bringing online right now, not quite in the current PCF pipeline, but should be in the next couple of months, called Seeker from Synopsys, and that's a more dynamic tool. This is a tool that it does some static analysis, but it also, once the code is deployed, it has the ability to inject tests against that code. It tries to run cross-site scripting and SQL attacks against it, and validates that the code is actually successfully, not just from a static point of view, but from a dynamic point of view, withstanding those attacks. It's hard to see. Back over here, yes, thanks.
I noticed that you guys are using Concourse and you're adopting it. Before that, were you using any other CI/CD tool like Jenkins, or was this your first one? If you were, can you compare, why you pick Concourse?
Yeah, great question. The question was, we're using Concourse, or we're adopting Concourse, and that is new for us. And what were we using before? And so Jenkins definitely has been our core CI/CD automation system. But I would add that, in addition to just Jenkins, we've developed a whole internal automation system that does the full push of the code out into production. As you can imagine, we needed automation for that. With our current service architecture, we run something like 80 what we call roles, which actually are each a cluster of JVMs that are running up to about 150 services, and delivering code out to all of those different JVMs was going to require some automation. It also ends up being used to deliver some additional monitoring in there on top of all of the application, the APM monitoring that we do, and all the other monitoring. So that's a big change, but seems to be going well. Our team has adapted well to it and is enjoying all of the automation that comes with PCF. Yes?
Perhaps a follow-up to that question. Can you speak to how you accomplish your blue-green deployments?
Well, that's new. So the question was, how do we accomplish the blue-green deployments? What we're finding is that the blue-green deployments are a little bit less than what we were hoping for, from the point of view of delivering a production-worthy blue-green deployment with zero downtime as we push. So we're working with Pivotal to add additional automation to what's already delivered on the platform. Glad to chat with you offline about the details of that. I'm looking forward to Spinnaker and what that offers. I'm glad to see that stuff in the roadmap out here, but that's something that is currently an issue that we're tackling. Yes?
You mentioned APM earlier. What APM toolset are you using? Were you using APM before PCF? And if so, how are you, or are you not integrating that?
Yep. Yeah. So the question is, are we using APM? What APM are we using in this new PCF environment? Yes, we've been using AppDynamics for many years at StubHub, and we've got a little bit of New Relic as well, but we're pretty committed to AppDynamics right now. And we renewed our last contract with them with the idea that we would have enough licenses to roll into PCF as well. That has been a little bit more challenging. We're working closely with the AppDynamics engineering team to make that a natural part of the pipeline so that it's cleanly installed and instantiated every time that something is provisioned in the auto-scaling. But that's an important app for us. We're also using Prometheus as our core monitoring infrastructure inside of PCF, and that's a move for us from a variety of infrastructures, monitoring infrastructures that we're using in our current sites. But we're continuing to use Splunk, and so we're using the log aggregator and I forget what you call them, the fire hoses to get all that data into our Splunk environment. Splunk is sort of just like, bonded to us. And so very important part of our monitoring and reporting tools. More questions? Yes.
Of the 4 personas of people listed, who can you say were the most challenging to transform?
Oh, interesting. So of the 4 personas here, who were the most challenging? It was Chris himself here. So I think that we are not done yet, and I think that this is an ongoing process. So each one, the people who were on the front line first were the ops team, and so and in each case, and the architecture team and the developer teams have been coming close behind. And what we're finding in each case is that no matter how challenging it was in terms of convincing people that this was a good idea, we did a lot of talking, we did a lot of sitting down and just letting people ask questions, in some cases to emote about it. But once they got their hands on it, that was the challenge, is that we're doing this crawl phase, and we can't give everybody access right now. And they all wanted to get their hands on it and get out ahead of it. But as soon as people started getting their hands on it, I think everybody else relaxed a little bit and saw, oh, okay, so this is going to be all right. I think our biggest transformation problem going forward, truthfully, is just going to be staying in the walk phase and we're going right to running. Because people like the environments, we're liking what we see. It was a great delight on last week when we were doing load testing in our production environments, where we ran tests that pushed 20 times our normal load at the front home page, and PCF just auto-scaled and went up, didn't have a glitch, and just auto-scaled back down as the load came off. So, those kinds of demonstrations are building confidence, and as we build that confidence, we're not seeing really a lot of pushback on implementing. All right, I think we're running out of time here, so thank you very much. I appreciate your being here.